Felix had worked in the cartography division for 30 years, and in all that time he had never seen anything interesting happen. The job was boring, the hours were long, and most days he simply moved data from one file to another while dreaming of retirement. But today was different, and he could feel it in his bones the moment he walked into the archive room. The Galactic Council had ordered a full audit of the Orion Spur, a tiny section of the galaxy that nobody cared about. It was far from the trade routes, far from the wealthy systems, and far from anything that mattered to the great powers of the cosmos. Just a collection of young stars and unremarkable planets that had been ignored for 10,000 years. Felix sat at his terminal and began the tedious work of cross-referencing new survey data with the old records. Star after star checked out fine. Planet after planet matched its historical entry. And he was starting to fall asleep when his screen suddenly turned red and began flashing a warning he had never seen before. "What is this?" he muttered to himself, his insectoid eyes blinking in confusion as ancient symbols appeared on the display, symbols that looked nothing like modern galactic standard. Symbols that seemed to crawl and shift as if they were alive. The alarm was loud and sharp, cutting through the quiet of the archive like a knife. Felix tried to silence it, but nothing worked, and within moments, his supervisor Malin came rushing through the door with panic on his face. "What did you do?" Malin demanded, his 3 eyes wide with fear as he stared at the flashing screen. "I did nothing," Felix protested, pointing at his terminal with a trembling claw. "I was just running the standard audit on the Orion Spur, and when I scanned this yellow star system, the alarm started on its own. I do not even know what language this warning is written in." Malin pushed Felix aside and leaned close to the screen. His face went pale, then gray, then a shade of white that Felix had never seen on a living being before. It was the color of death, the color of absolute terror. "This cannot be right," Malin whispered. "This alarm has not been triggered in 6 million years. The system must be broken. The data must be corrupted. This has to be a mistake." But even as he spoke, Malin's hands were shaking so badly he could barely type. He ran verification after verification, checked the source data 3 times, and compared the spectral signature of the yellow star against the Forbidden's archives that only senior staff could access. The match was perfect. There was no mistake. "What is it?" Felix asked, his voice small and afraid. "What did I find?" Malin turned to look at him, and in that moment Felix saw something he had never expected to see in his calm and collected supervisor. Pure and complete terror that went beyond fear and into something like religious dread. "You found Earth," Malin said, and the word hung in the air like a curse. "You found Deathworld Prime, the cradle of the Devourers, the world that the progenitors themselves sealed away 12 million years ago, and according to this data, the seal is broken." Felix did not understand. He had never heard of Earth, never heard of the Devourers, and the progenitors were just myths and legends that parents told their children at bedtime, ancient beings who had created all life in the galaxy before vanishing into mystery. The progenitors were real? Felix asked. "Very real," Malin replied as he began typing furiously, sending messages to addresses that Felix did not recognize. "And if they feared something enough to lock it away forever, then we should be very afraid that it is now awake." Within 1 hour, the Black Protocol was activated for the first time in living memory. Ships across the galaxy received emergency orders to halt. Wars that had raged for centuries suddenly paused, and every major species leader found themselves summoned to a location that most of them did not even know existed. Message was the same for all of them. The seal is broken. They have awakened. Come immediately or face extinction alone. High Counselor Zren of the Vorthax. Hegemony was in the middle of planning an invasion when the summons arrived. He had conquered 12 systems in the past decade, and feared nothing in the known universe. But when he read the message, his blood turned cold, and he ordered his fleets to stand down, without a word of explanation to his. General's ambassador Etheli of the Communion Hive was negotiating a trade agreement when her billions of connected minds suddenly screamed in unison. The ancient memories buried deep in her collective consciousness had awakened. Memories passed down for millions of generations. Memories of fire and death and creatures that would not stop hunting no matter how far you ran Elder Primus, the oldest being in the galaxy, a crystalline entity who had watched stars be born and die, received the message in his meditation chamber. He had not moved from that chamber in 10,000 years. But when he read the words on the screen, he rose immediately and began the long journey to the chamber of last resort. One by one they came, the rulers and leaders and elders of every major civilization. They traveled through secret pathways and hidden gates to a station that floated in the void between galaxies. A place built for one purpose, only to discuss threats that could end all life everywhere. Velix watched them arrive through the security feeds. His small role in this cosmic drama now complete. He had only been doing his job, only running a simple audit, and somehow he had triggered the greatest panic the galaxy had ever seen. "What are the humans?" he asked Malin as they watched another ship dock at the station. "What makes them so dangerous that the entire galaxy stops when they wake up?" Malin did not answer for a long moment. He just stared at the screen with those three haunted eyes. And when he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "They are what happens when evolution decides that nothing should survive except the most stubborn and violent creature imaginable," he said. "They are persistent predators who never stop hunting, adaptable organisms who can live anywhere, and cooperative killers who will burn their own world rather than let an enemy win. And for 12 million years, we have been praying they would forget we exist." "Did they forget?" Velix asked. Milan shook his head slowly, fear etched into every line of his face. "No," he said. "They've been looking at the stars and asking questions, building machines and reaching beyond their world. And soon, very soon, they are going to find us whether we want them to or not." The Chamber of Last Resort had been built for moments like this. Its walls were thick enough to survive a supernova. Its systems were independent of all other networks. And its location was known to fewer than 100 beings in the entire universe. But as the council elders gathered around the ancient table, none of them felt safe because somewhere in that tiny yellow star system, on a world that should have stayed forgotten, the humans were waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Chamber of Last Resort was silent as the 12 council elders took their seats around the ancient table. These were the most powerful beings in the galaxy, rulers of empires that spanned thousands of star systems, commanders of fleets that could crack planets in half, and every single one of them was afraid. Elder Primus stood at the head of the table, his crystalline body glowing with soft blue light. He was older than anyone could count, a being who remembered the time before the great civilizations rose. And his voice carried the weight of millions of years when he finally spoke. "You all know why we are here," he said. "The world called Earth has been rediscovered, and its inhabitants have begun reaching toward the stars. The seal of the progenitors has failed, and we must decide what to do before it is too late." High Counselor Zren slammed his fist on the table with enough force to crack stone. "Then we destroy them now while they are still weak," he roared. "Send every fleet we have and burn that cursed world to ashes before they can spread beyond their system. This is simple." "Nothing about this is simple," replied Ambassador Etheli, her voice carrying the combined wisdom of billions of minds connected as one. "My communion has run the calculations 10,000 times, and every scenario ends the same way. If we attack Earth, we will fail." "Impossible," Zren snapped. They are primitives with chemical rockets and simple nuclear weapons. My fleet alone could glass their planet in an hour." "Your fleet would never reach the surface," Elder Primus said quietly, and something in his tone made even the aggressive Zren fall silent. "Do you know why the progenitors sealed Earth away, Counselor? Do you know what the humans did to them 12 million years ago?" Zren hesitated. Like most beings in the galaxy, he knew the progenitors only as legends and myths. Ancient gods who had created life across the stars before mysteriously vanishing. Nobody talked about why they had disappeared. And he had never thought to ask. Elder Primus waved his crystalline hand, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed images from the sealed histories, records that have been locked away since before any current civilization existed, and what it showed made several of the elders gasp in horror. The progenitors were real, and they ruled this galaxy with absolute power for 300 million years, Elder Primus explained. They could move stars with their technology, reshape planets with a thought, and no species had ever challenged them until they found Earth. The hologram showed a beautiful blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. It looked peaceful, harmless, just another garden planet among billions. But the next image showed a progenitor harvest fleet entering the system. 10,000 ships strong, the most powerful armada ever assembled. They came to collect biological resources, Elder Primus continued. Earth had developed fascinating life forms, and the progenitors wanted samples. They expected no resistance from the primitive apes that lived there, creatures who had barely learned to use stone tools. The next image showed those same ships burning in orbit, broken and shattered, their wreckage falling like rain onto the planet below. "What happened?" whispered Elder Kythresh, a consciousness from the gas giants who had never known fear until this moment. "The humans happened," Elder Primus replied. "The progenitors landed ground forces to capture specimens, and those forces were destroyed. Every single soldier, every single vehicle, every single ship that touched the surface was overwhelmed by creatures that refused to die." The hologram showed scenes that made the elders look away. Humans with primitive spears attacking advanced technology and somehow winning. Humans taking progenitor weapons and learning to use them within days. Humans hunting the hunters across every terrain on their deadly world. They learned, Elder Primus said. They adapted. Within one generation, they had reverse-engineered progenitor energy weapons. Within 2 generations, they had figured out basic shield technology. And within 3 generations, they were building ships of their own from the wreckage of the Harvest Fleet. How is that possible? Zren asked, his voice much quieter now. It takes most species thousands of years to develop such technology. Humans do not think like other species, Ambassador Ithili answered. My communion has studied the progenitor records extensively. The humans have a trait that exists nowhere else in the galaxy. Something the ancients called collaborative innovation. When one human learns something, they teach it to others, and those others improve upon it and teach it to more, creating an exponential growth of knowledge that no other species can match. Elder Primus nodded grimly. But that is not the worst part. Tell them, Ambassador, what the humans did to the progenitor soldiers they captured. Ithili's hive mind shuddered as one. They ate them, she said. The humans consumed the flesh of progenitor soldiers in ritual ceremonies, believing it would grant them the power of their enemies, and somehow, impossibly, it worked. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Eating other sentient beings was so unthinkable to most galactic species that they had no words for it. It was a horror beyond comprehension. Human DNA is unlike anything else in the universe, Ithili continued. It absorbs beneficial mutations from outside sources, incorporating useful traits from consumed genetic material. The humans who ate progenitor flesh became stronger, faster, more resistant to disease and injury. They evolved in real time. adapting to fight an enemy that should have been invincible. The progenitors sent more fleets, Elder Primus said. They sent their greatest warriors, their most advanced weapons, their most terrible plagues, and the humans defeated them all, growing stronger with each victory, learning from each battle, becoming more dangerous with every generation. The hologram showed the final days of the progenitor presence near Earth. Their last colony ship fleeing at maximum speed. A small fleet of crude human vessels pursuing them across the void. The desperate transmission that would become the progenitor's final words to the galaxy. Do not return. Elder Primus read from the ancient text. Do not make contact, do not let them know we exist. Let them forget we were ever there, and pray they forget us forever. The progenitors abandoned this galaxy, rather than face the humans again, he concluded. They sealed Earth behind barriers of space and time, hiding it from all sensors and all records, hoping that millions of years of isolation would make the humans forget the stars. They hoped evolution would soften them. Civilization would tame them. Time would make them harmless. Did it work? Zren asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer, before Elder Primus could respond. The chamber's communication array lit up with an incoming alert. A technician appeared on screen, her scales pale with terror. Elders, she cried. Our deep space sensors have detected something leaving the Sol system. It is small, primitive, moving slowly on a course that will take it into open space, and it is broadcasting messages in dozens of languages. The elders stared at each other in dawning horror as the implications became clear. The humans were not waiting to be found. They were not hiding on their world hoping to be left alone. They were actively reaching out into the darkness, looking for contact, searching for other life in the universe. They were looking for the galaxy, and the galaxy was not ready for what would happen when they found it. While the council elders debated and argued in the chamber of last resort, young Velix could not sleep. The images he had seen on his terminal haunted him. The ancient warning symbols burned into his memory, and a terrible curiosity drove him to learn more about the species that had made the entire galaxy tremble with fear. He returned to the archive in the middle of the night cycle, when the halls were empty and no one would ask questions. His access code still worked, and the sealed histories were still unlocked from the emergency earlier. Perhaps the senior staff had been too panicked to secure them properly. Or perhaps the system wanted someone to see what was inside of Alex, did not care about the reason. He only cared about finding the truth. The files were massive, containing millions of records spanning 12 million years. Most of it was dry data about Earth's isolation and the barriers that kept it hidden, but buried deep in the archives. Velix found the personal logs of the progenitor commanders who had tried to conquer that deadly world. First contact report. Cycle 7,432,891. The first entry read, "We have arrived at the third planet of the target system. Initial scans show a world teeming with life, including a primitive bipedal species that shows signs of basic intelligence. The harvest should be simple and quick." Velix scrolled forward, his heart beating faster as he read entry after entry. Cycle 7,432,894. The ground teams have encountered unexpected resistance. The native species has organized faster than predicted, using crude weapons to ambush our soldiers in the dense vegetation. Casualties are minimal, but concerning. Cycle 7,432,901. Casualties are no longer minimal. The natives have learned to target our power cores and communication devices. They seem to understand our technology better each day. Commander Vex has requested reinforcements. Cycle 7,432,915. Reinforcements have arrived, but the situation has worsened. The natives are now using captured progenitor weapons against us. They should not be able to operate such complex devices. But somehow they have figured out the firing mechanisms in less than a rotation cycle. Cycle 7,432,940. Commander. Vex is dead. His entire battalion was lured into a canyon and destroyed by coordinated attacks from multiple native groups. These groups were enemies of each other until we arrived. But they have formed an alliance against us. They call it a war council. Felix felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The natives had been fighting each other before the progenitors arrived, but the moment an outside threat appeared, they had united. Their internal conflicts meant nothing compared to the opportunity to fight a common enemy. He continued reading, and the entries grew increasingly desperate. Cycle 7,433,100. We have lost control of 3 continents. The natives have spread captured technology to populations across their world. Every group that receives our weapons immediately learns to use them and improve them. One group has already modified our energy projectors to fire 3 times faster than the original design. Cycle 7. 433,250. The Progenitor High Command has authorized orbital bombardment. We will sterilize the affected continents and start fresh with specimens from the uncontacted regions. This nightmare must end. Cycle 7,433,251. The bombardment has failed. The natives somehow predicted the attack and dispersed into underground shelters when our ground teams arrived to assess the damage. They walked into the largest ambush in Progenitor history. We lost 8,000 soldiers in a single day. Felix had to stop reading for a moment. His mind could not process what he was seeing. A primitive species with stone tools had defeated the most advanced civilization in galactic history, not through superior technology, but through sheer determination and the ability to learn faster than anyone thought possible. The next entries were even more disturbing. Cycle 7,433,400. Something has changed in the natives, those who participated in the consumption rituals are showing enhanced physical capabilities. They are stronger, faster, and more resistant to injury than baseline specimens. Our scientists believe their genetic structure is somehow absorbing beneficial traits from consumed progenitor tissue. Cycle 7,433,500. We can no longer win this war. The natives have built crude spacecraft from our wreckage and are conducting raids on our orbital stations. Their pilots fly without fear, accepting death as an acceptable price for destroying our ships. We have no counter to enemies who do not value their own survival. Cycle 7,433,600. I am the last commander. All others have fallen or fled. The natives control their entire world and have established permanent orbital presence. They are already planning expeditions to their neighboring planets in another 1,000 cycles. They will have interstellar capability. The High Command has ordered full retreat and planetary isolation. We are sealing this world away forever. The final entry was dated the same cycle as the retreat order. Personal log of Fleet Commander Axios. Last transmission before the seal. I have studied these creatures for 200 cycles, and I finally understand what makes them so dangerous. It is not their violence. For many species are violent. It is not their intelligence. For many species are intelligent. It is their refusal to accept defeat under any circumstances. When we destroyed their cities, they rebuilt when we killed their warriors. More took their place when we pushed them to the edge of extinction. They push back harder. They have a concept they call spite, which means continuing to fight even when victory is impossible, simply to cause pain to the enemy. They will pursue a grudge across generations. Parents teach children to hate their family's enemies, and those children teach their children, and the hatred never fades. A progenitor insult from 1,000 years ago is remembered as if it happened yesterday. We made a terrible mistake coming here. who did not harvest resources from this world. We woke up something that was sleeping, and now we must pray that it goes back to sleep and forgets we ever existed to. Any future species that finds this record, do not go to Earth, do not contact its inhabitants, do not let them know that other life exists in the universe. The humans are not a species to be conquered or negotiated with. They are a force of nature, a galactic extinction event waiting to happen, and the only safety is in their ignorance. May the stars have mercy on you if they ever remember what we did to them. Felix closed the archive and sat in the darkness, trembling. He finally understood why the council elders were so afraid. Why the entire galaxy had stopped when Earth was rediscovered. Why civilizations that had never agreed on anything were united in terror. The humans were not just dangerous, they were inevitable. They had been sealed away for 12 million years. But they had not been idle. They had built civilizations and destroyed them, invented new technologies and lost them, fought wars among themselves that killed millions, and through it all, they had never stopped looking at the stars and wondering what was out there. Now they were reaching toward those stars, sending signals into the darkness, building ships to carry them beyond their world, and when they finally met the galaxy, they would have 12 million years of questions to ask, questions about the progenitors, questions about what had happened to their ancestors, questions about why the galaxy had tried so hard to keep them locked away. And Felix knew, with terrible certainty, that the humans would not stop asking until they had every answer, no matter what it cost, no matter who had to pay. The council elders argued for 3 standard days without reaching any agreement. Some wanted to destroy Earth immediately. Others wanted to hide and hope the humans never found them. And a few suggested making contact before the humans came looking. But every option seemed to lead to disaster. And fear made decision impossible. Finally, Elder Primus proposed a compromise. They would send a single observation ship to Earth, crewed by volunteers who understood they might not return, and gather information about what humanity had become during their 12 million years of isolation. Only then could the Council make an informed choice about the future. The mission fell to Captain Sarth of the Minari, a species known for their short lifespans and their willingness to accept dangerous assignments. The Minari believed that a meaningful death was better than a meaningless life, and Sarth considered it the greatest honor of his existence to be chosen for this task. His ship was small and fast, designed for stealth rather than combat, equipped with sensors that could observe a planet from orbit without being detected. The crew of 12 knew they were expendable, and not one of them complained. This was what they had trained for, what they had been born for, what they would die for if necessary. The journey to Earth took 40 cycles, and Sarth spent every moment studying the progenitor records. By the time his ship entered the Sol system, he thought he was prepared for anything, but nothing could have prepared him for what he found. Earth was beautiful. It hung in the darkness like a jewel of blue and white, swirling clouds covering oceans that sparkled in the light of the yellow sun. Green continents stretched across its surface, and even from orbit Sarth could see the signs of civilization, cities that glowed at night, roads that connected vast regions, ships that moved across the water, and aircraft that filled the sky. Initial observations, Sarth recorded in his log. The humans have developed a technological civilization of considerable complexity. They appear to have mastered atmospheric flight, nuclear energy, basic space travel, and global communication networks. However, their technology is far below galactic standard, and their military capabilities seem limited to planetary warfare. He paused the recording and studied the tactical display more carefully. Something was wrong with the data, something that did not match the terrifying stories from the progenitor archives. Correction to previous observation. He continued. The humans are not unified. They have divided their world into hundreds of separate territories called nations. and these nations appear to be in constant conflict with each other at this moment. I am detecting 17 active wars across the planet, along with countless smaller disputes and ongoing tensions. Soreth felt something he had not expected to feel. Hope. Perhaps the threat has been exaggerated, he said to his second officer. The progenitors faced a united humanity that worked together against a common enemy. But these humans fight among themselves constantly. They may destroy each other before they ever reach the stars. His second officer, a young Minari named Kethy, did not share his optimism. Captain, look at the combat footage. Our sensors are recording. Watch how they fight. Soreth turned to the display and watched as human soldiers engaged in battle. They used projectile weapons and explosives, crude by galactic standards. But their tactics were sophisticated, and their coordination was impressive. Squads moved together as single units, covering each other, protecting their wounded, refusing to abandon fallen comrades, even when it put them at greater risk. They care about each other, Kethy observed. Even in combat, even against enemies they hate, they will risk their lives to save one of their own. I have never seen a species with such strong social bonds. That makes them dangerous. Soreth agreed. But as long as they fight each other, they cannot threaten the galaxy. Their internal divisions are our protection for 3 more cycles. The Minari ship observed Earth from the shadows. They watched humans work and play, fight and love, build and destroy, and slowly Soreth began to think that the Council's fears were overblown. That humanity was just another young species struggling to mature, no more dangerous than any other. Then the earthquake happened. It struck without warning on the far side of the planet. A massive geological event that destroyed an entire city in minutes. Buildings collapsed, roads cracked open, and fires spread through the wreckage. The sensors detected over 50,000 casualties in the first hour alone, with more dying every moment as survivors struggled to escape the ruin. Soreth expected chaos. He expected the neighboring nations to take advantage of the disaster, to attack while their enemy was weak, to seize territory and resources while the defenders were busy digging out their dead. What he saw instead changed everything he thought he knew about humanity within hours of the earthquake. Ships and aircraft from dozens of nations began arriving at the disaster zone. They came from countries that had been enemies for generations, nations that had fought wars against each other, people who had every reason to hate the victims, and they came to help doctors from hostile territories, worked side by side to save the injured. Soldiers who had been trying to kill each other the previous month now lifted rubble together to free trapped survivors. Food and medicine poured in from every corner of the globe, donated by governments and ordinary citizens who had never met the people they were saving and never would. Captain, Kethy whispered, her voice shaking. Are you seeing this? Soreth could not speak. He could only watch as humanity demonstrated something the galaxy had no word for: compassion that transcended conflict, a unity that emerged from disaster, a species that could hate each other with passionate fury and still choose to save each other when it mattered most. I understand now, he finally said. I understand what makes them truly dangerous. He thought about the progenitor records, about how quickly the humans had united against the alien invasion, about how their internal wars had meant nothing compared to the threat from the stars, and he realized, with horrible clarity, what the Council had missed. The humans were not dangerous. Despite their internal conflicts, they were dangerous because of them. Their constant warfare was practice. Every generation fought and learned and adapted, developing new tactics and new technologies, testing them against the most challenging opponents in the universe, each other. Their divisions were temporary. The moment a greater threat appeared, all those enemies would become allies. All that combat experience would turn outward. All that passion and fury would focus on a single target, and their compassion was the most terrifying thing of all. They did not simply fight to destroy. They fought to protect. They would die for strangers. Sacrifice everything for people they had never met. Burn worlds to ashes to avenge those they loved. Sorth began composing his final report, knowing that the council needed to understand what he had learned, knowing that this information could save or doom the galaxy depending on how it was used. The humans are not a threat because they are united, he wrote. They are a threat because they can become united whenever they choose. Their current state of division is not weakness. It is a resting state, a way of sharpening their skills while they wait for a worthy opponent. If we attack them, we will give them what they have been waiting for, a reason to stop fighting each other and start fighting us. And once that happens, once they turn their attention to the stars, nothing in the galaxy will be able to stop them. My recommendation is simple. We must never give them a reason to unite against us. We must remain hidden, remain silent, and pray that they never discover we exist. Because if humanity ever learns that the galaxy tried to keep them locked away, they will not rest until they have made us pay for every single year of their imprisonment. And humans never forget a debt. Captain Sorath's report arrived at the chamber of last resort like a bomb exploding in slow motion. The council elders read his words in silence, watched his footage of the earthquake response, and felt their last hopes crumble to dust. There would be no easy solution to the human problem. No quick fix that could make the danger go away. He's right, Ambassador Philly said, her billions of connected minds reaching the same conclusions simultaneously. Attack is impossible. Every simulation my communion has run ends with human victory within 3 generations. And most scenarios result in the complete extinction of galactic civilization. Then we hide, High Counselor Zren growled. We go dark, disable all transmissions, destroy any evidence that we exist. Let the humans think they are alone in the universe. It is too late for that, Elder Primus replied. They have already detected our old communications. Their scientists have been studying anomalies in the cosmic background radiation for decades. Anomalies that match the signature of progenitor-era transmissions. They know something is out there, and they will not stop searching until they find it. The chamber fell silent as the elders contemplated their doom. Everything they tried would fail. Every strategy would backfire. Every path led to the same destination. Humanity would find them. Humanity would remember what had been done to their ancestors. And humanity would seek revenge. There is one option we have not considered, said Elder Communion. The vast hive mind speaking through its primary avatar. One scenario that my calculations show has a 17% chance of survival. It is not good odds, but it is better than 0. Speak, Elder Primus commanded. We tell him the truth, Communion said. We approach humanity not as equals or superiors, but as those who come to confess a crime. We admit what the progenitors did. We offer whatever reparations they demand. And we appeal to a trait that humans possess which no other species shares. What trait? Zren asked suspiciously. Forgiveness, Commune replied. The humans have a concept of mercy that allows them to release grudges under certain conditions. If the offender admits wrongdoing, shows genuine remorse, and makes appropriate amends. Humans are capable of choosing peace over vengeance. It is illogical. It is inefficient. It defies every survival instinct. But they do it anyway. You want us to apologize? Zren roared. You want the Galactic Council to beg forgiveness from primitives who have not even left their own solar system? I want us to survive, Communion answered calmly. And this is the only way the humans will find us eventually. That much is certain. The only question is whether they find us hiding and lying, or whether they find us waiting with open hands and honest words. The debate lasted another full cycle, but in the end, there was no real choice. The elders voted to attempt contact, to confess the sins of the progenitors. and to pray that humanity's strange capacity for mercy would save them all. They sent their message on every frequency the humans could detect. A simple greeting followed by an invitation to talk. The response came within hours. A primitive radio transmission that nonetheless carried across light years of space. "We hear you, we are coming." The meeting took place on a small moon at the edge of the solar system, a neutral location where neither side would have an advantage. The council sent their finest diplomats, their most experienced negotiators, beings who had brokered treaties between empires and ended wars that had lasted millennia, and they all trembled as the human ship approached it, was small by galactic standards. A crude vessel of metal and fire that should not have been capable of interstellar travel, but the humans had built it anyway, had pushed their primitive technology to its absolute limits, had refused to accept that some things were impossible. The airlock opened, and a single human emerged. Her name was Elena Vasquez, and she was the first of her kind to stand before the rulers of the galaxy. She was small and fragile-looking, with dark hair and darker eyes, and she moved with the careful grace of someone who knew exactly how dangerous she was. "Welcome," Elder Primus said, his crystalline form flickering with nervous light. "We are honored to meet the representative of humanity. We have much to discuss and much to confess." Elena said nothing. She simply stood and waited, her expression unreadable, her eyes moving from elder to elder, as if measuring each one for a coffin. The confession took hours. The elders told her everything: the progenitor harvest, the war, the consumption rituals, the failed extermination attempts, the sealing of Earth, the 12 million years of deliberate isolation. They held nothing back, admitted every crime, and offered reparations beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen: full membership in the Galactic Council with immediate voting rights, complete access to all technology, including faster-than-light travel and matter synthesis eternal, non-aggression treaties backed by the combined might of every civilized species, formal apologies from every government that had participated in the cover-up when they finished. Elena remained silent for a long moment. The elders watched her face for any sign of emotion: anger, hatred, satisfaction, anything, but she gave them nothing. Just that same measuring stare that made even the oldest beings in the galaxy feel like prey finally. She smiled. It was a small smile, polite and professional. The kind of smile that diplomats practiced in mirrors. But something in her eyes was older than diplomacy, older than civilization, old as the hunger that had driven her ancestors to hunt the hunters and eat the eaters. "We accept your apology," Elena said. "Humanity will join your council. We will be very active members. I promise you that, and we look forward to learning everything about galactic civilization." The elders felt a wave of relief wash over them. Perhaps communion had been right. Perhaps the humans could forgive. Perhaps the galaxy would survive after all. Then Elena continued. "But we do have questions," she said. 12 million years is a long time, and we want to understand exactly what happened, who made the decisions, which species were involved, what other secrets have been kept from us. We are a curious people, Elder Primus, and we do not like mysteries." Her smile widened, and for just a moment, the elders saw something behind her eyes, something ancient and patient and utterly relentless. The same thing the progenitors had seen in the eyes of primitive apes 12 million years ago. "We will be asking a great many questions in the coming years," Elena said. "And we expect honest answers, complete answers, because humans have very good memories. Elder Primus, we remember everything, and we have a saying on Earth that I think you should learn." She leaned forward, and her voice dropped to something that was almost a whisper. "The truth will set you free, but first it will make you very, very uncomfortable." The elders had hoped their confession would bring peace and closure. They had hoped humanity would take their apology and move forward, leaving the past behind instead. They had reminded humanity that someone owed them answers, and humans never stopped asking questions until they had every answer. They were looking for every answer, no matter how deeply it was. Buried no matter how much the galaxy wanted to forget. The stars had hidden their secrets for 12 million years, but the stars had never met a species that considered patience a weapon and curiosity a birthright. Humanity was awake. Humanity was asking questions, and the galaxy would never sleep peacefully again.